right, let's take a look. Okay, overwhelming response for D. Which of the following factors does not influence the rate of simple diffusion of molecules across a membrane? So D is correct, right? So we know that the permeability affects the rate, the magnitude of the driving force affects the rate, the exposed surface area affects the rate. Active transport is actually very counterproductive to simple diffusion. Active transport is the opposite, right? This is simple diffusion. It's going to be down the concentration gradient. It's actually going to be passive. And so it has nothing to do with active transport. Okay, excellent. So the answer here is D. All right, let's take a look at another. All right, last few seconds. Okay. So how do active and passive transport differ? So essentially, we're looking here at the main differences. So we know B and C are out. No channels are needed in passive transport. That's not true because ion movement is passive. Active transport is always faster than passive. That's not always true either, right? It's going to really depend on the weight of each of those transporters or carriers or the pumps in the case of active transport. So B and C are not true. A is not true because the particles themselves don't have to have energy, okay? We can get that energy from another particle, and so we can eliminate A as well, right? D is the correct statement because active transport is going to be working against its driving force, right? Against its gradient, while passive transport is working with its gradient. That's the main difference between these two types of movement. So the mechanism by which we can get the energy to move actively can differ, right? The particles can take the energy from the dephosphorylation of hydrolysis of ATP or from another molecule moving, and they don't actually have the energy within the molecules themselves. So this is why A is incorrect, and then D is going to be the right answer, right? So the main difference is that we're always working against our gradient for active transport, whereas passive transport is working with that gradient. All right, let's see if we have enough time. We do have some time, so let's look at another here. All right, last 10 seconds here. Okay. So overwhelming response for D, which of the following does not influence the rate of facilitated diffusion of molecules across a membrane? So A, the transport rates of the individual carriers, that does influence facilitated diffusion. B, the number of carriers in the membrane also influences facilitated diffusion. And then C, the magnitude of the driving force, the magnitude of the gradient also influences the weight of facilitated diffusion. The solubility of the molecules in the membrane does not, right? Remember, these are not actually going through the membrane. So it doesn't matter if glucose, for example, can go through the membrane. It's going to be moving through a carrier, and so that's not going to influence how the rate of glucose movement through the membrane, because it's not going directly through the membrane, it's using a carrier, okay? All right, so the answer here would have been D. All three of the other factors do influence the rate of facilitated diffusion.